2.5-year-olds were rare. 3.5-year-olds were almost an enigma. They just almost didn't exist. But there were some around. I think the DNR said there was probably one 3.5-year-old buck for every 100 antlered bucks back then.
Wow.
So if you had 5 sections, 5 square miles, not 5 by 5, but 5 sections, and you had 20 bucks in each section, that would mean there'd be one 3.5-year-old buck in 5 sections.
Mm-hmm.
That was the average back then. It's higher now because people are passing up deer, but
Right.
it's still different. And back then, I did all my scouting preseason and in season, and by the mid '70s, I was realizing how much my intrusions were affecting mature doe and mature buck daytime movements. So I tried to think of something to change, something out of the generic pre and in season scouting. And during the late season in December, while walking to my locations in the evenings and leaving my locations in the mornings, the foliage was all down, and it just hit me like a 2x4 in the head. It was like, good God, look how far I can see. I can see how dense the security cover actually is. I can see scrapes from 30 yards away and rubs, because the white of the meat of this tree shows. And I said, you know what? As soon as this season's over, I'm going to start scouting as soon as the snow's gone. And oh my God, it was just an awakening. It was just
Yeah.
an awakening how much different the woods looks and how much easier the sign is to see during postseason. And you get a true look at your trees when you prep them. If you're prepping a rut phase tree, you're looking at the tree the way it's going to look when the foliage is out during the rut phases.
Right.
So you go out preseason, and I would scout in preseason, and I'd set up 18 feet. And then, I come back during the rut, and even though I looked like I had plenty of cover when I set it up during preseason, during the rut, I was exposed like crazy, and I'd get picked. So, postseason, you're looking at it exactly the way it's going to look during the rut phases, and you're looking at the security cover the way it's going to look during the rut phases. So you're not misguided by preseason. Everything looks dense because everything's got foliage. It looks a lot heavy. It looks a lot denser security cover than it actually is.
Right.
It just made a huge. That was a huge game changer.
What year? What year would you say you started doing the postseason scouting, John?
1976.
Okay.
1975 is when I was walking through the woods in December, going to my locations or exiting them in the mornings, and it just hit me because I was always thinking, I've got to do something different. I'm having a hard time getting on 3.5-year-old bucks, even though there's very few of them around. I saw their sign, but I never physically saw them. And that's obviously before cameras. And yeah, it just hit me while I was walking in and out of the woods in the daylight. Man, I can see everything. I don't have to worry about, and then postseason scouting, you don't have to worry about scent control. You don't have to worry about a lot of things that you do during preseason, and your intrusions are irrelevant to deer movements, during the early part of the season. You're not spooking deer is irrelevant at that point in time. So unlike, when you're hunting heavily pressured areas, obviously you can't control what other people do. But if you control what you do, and you tend to use waders and hip boots to go, or canoes to go back deeper, then what you do is very important. If you're just hunting like everybody else, and you postseason scouted, it would be irrelevant because all the other hunters that are hunting in the same areas as you are, they're not willing to put the work forth to get back to those more secure areas where you got to use hip boots and waders and canoes to get to. Other people are going to screw up your locations as well because everybody else is preseason and in season scouting. So, if you're getting back in the junk where most people aren't willing to put the work forth to get there, then your intrusions make a big, big difference. And if you do them during postseason, you're not screwing anything up. And you can also scout bedding areas during postseason. You can't scout bedding areas during preseason and in season because you're going to blow deer out of it, and that's going to be really detrimental to success at your location.
Yeah. Something else that I've noticed postseason scouting too is I don't bump very many deer really because I'm not really looking where they're at in
Sure, yeah,
January, February, March.
you don't
They're
care.
a lot of times they're bundled up in some guy's private farm or something.
Yeah,
Um, So you're really not messing with them at all during that part of
Yeah,
the year.
and even if you do bump them up, it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
Like you said, by as soon as season's over, the mature bucks, they typically in mature does that are deep in the bedding areas during season, it doesn't take them long to know if they're mature because they've been through this several years already. Season's over. And then they start, once they start getting snow and cold winds, they move from where they are typically bedded during season closer to the preferred food source, and they're not as worried about security cover. So, uh, yeah, you're not really, when you're going into bedding areas where the deer are going to be during season, you're not usually spooking many deer because they're not bedding in there anymore.
yeah.